to cruise, that's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic,
I'm Becca Merkel.
and it's a beautiful spring day in the middle of the week because we're on spring break.
Spring break is thrilling our souls right now.
Good times are being
It's
had.
amazing.
Yep, we're not falling into either coronavirus nor the treacherous panic that surrounds it. But I do find it interesting that, first of all, Christian, like, the only way to be in this kind of way is firm in your theology.
Oh my word,
that
I know.
whole, the only, what is it? Stonewall Jackson said it, but he was pretty much quoting David, but saying, "My faith in God teaches me to feel as safe on a battlefield as in bed."
Yep.
That there's literally nothing that can harm you that is not,
Yep.
in God's control. And of course, we need to be sensible people and wash your hands and not lick things in public. Try to
It's
hold
just-
off on that.
Yeah.
But also, I think that another thing that's equally as contagious as a random virus is what we appear to really be going down hard with, which is a viral panic. And
Yeah, and the thing is you have to take spiritual precautions like washing your hands and
spiritually
everything.
wash your hands.
Yeah, like
And don't pass off to one another fear and anxiety that you should not have had in the first place. That
No.
you should be giving
this
it to
world
God.
is a dangerous place, and there's a lot of ways that we could all get ourselves into
Well,
trouble
get
of
this.
many kinds.
Get this. And one thing I love is that just historically speaking, we live in a time where we accidentally, I think, slip into thinking that our birthright is health and painlessness and no problems. But that is not actually the case.
And the other thing I would say, though, is historically in various plagues, the thing that has really marked the Christians is being unafraid of it, being the ones that stayed behind in the, whatever, in the leper colonies, in the bubonic
people
plague.
who were not actually driven by fear.
The ones who are gonna help others, even if it meant risk to themselves. So I do think, like, diving under your bed with all of your toilet paper
It's not the great Christian legacy. Is
No,
what
it's
that
not.
isn't.
I mean, it's also going out and spreading it to all your friends and neighbors is also not
no, of course
what
not.
we ought to
And
be doing.
It's
So-
kind of like find your middle ground and stick with it. Something I think ought to be remembered is the fact that in the 1918 flu epidemic, 25 million people died in 25 weeks.
It killed more than the war.
Yeah, 25 weeks. So think of 1 million people a week dying of something.
Yep.
And think that if the epidemic was like that, you would still be obligated to a joyful fearlessness.
Yep.
Like, that you would be obligated to serve God and be brave and man up. And I think
Sure,
it's
protect yourself and be prepared and all those things.
and recognize the fact that God called you to this place and this time, and there's good works for you to walk in, and there's things for you to be thinking about. How do you glorify Him in this, and and not just like, how do I get what's going to be the hot commodity before all my neighbors got it. I mean, like, it's really odd. It's a really odd time.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm trying to prepare more for the panic than I am for the illness.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. More, not my panic. I'm saying I'm trying to prepare for, like, what do we need to do to,
I know.
like, live in this society?
Yep. Yep.
It's pretty kind of
It's a funny time, so I would just say don't let it dominate all of your waking thoughts and fears and stresses, and just, cheerfully go about your work.
Do your duties and love the Lord and love your neighbor, and don't be scaredy pants McSauce about viruses. I actually think it's really funny because we think we're so big, but we're nowhere near big enough for a virus. That's the thing, is so we have a lot of big plans.
Or the
but
weather.
man,
The weather is another one that we feel like we can control.
we're on it.
And then every so often God does a thing and we
And
all
we're
scurry
like,
about.
How did this happen? We're like, how did this get outside of our control? And the reality that's funny is people are like, how did these things happen? And the thing that's shocking is our normal state of health. And our normal state of dental care and sewage plans You know,
Yep.
the fact that someone in your local city, wherever you are, has prepared in advance the sewage treatment plants and has got
bless
that
their
system
hearts.
has got that system up and running means that your life is way easier than you deserve to have it.
Well, I was really when it
Also,
came, when
other
it came
people are
down to
plucking
it,
your
though, Rach.
chickens. Think of it.
Oh man, that's a win too. The thing is though, is that I thought, well, if worst comes to worst, and we can't get toilet paper, to be honest, I'm stumped. I don't know. I don't know what the
Dry
human
leaves.
race.
There's dry
What
leaves.
does the human race do about that?
Well, the reality is, that's something that is more feasible to live without than.
Lots of things.
I mean, if we were
Food.
going to run out of water, it would be
Yeah.
really rough.
Yeah,
but we're not.
We're not running out of that. Anyway,
Yeah, it's good that we all.
now, Rach, you saved up a thing to tell me.
Oh, Becca, I saved it up because I did. I have to refresh my mind. Sometimes Becca and I do this where we talk in the week, and I'm like, "Oh my word, Becca, I have to tell you." And I'm like, "No, I have to save it till it's on the podcast because if I tell you now, when I bring it up on the podcast, we'll sound duddy about it. Like we already heard this, you know."
Yeah, right.
Okay, but it's a really precious thing. It's one that blessed me deeply. So I don't
ready.
think this is a real popular movement. It just came to my attention.
Okay.
And it is hashtag Bill the Patriarchy. And
Okay.
not Bill the name, not that. Bill it like send an invoice to the patriarchy.
Well, why not? Why not make a quick buck off the patriarchy?
So the idea, it's this one woman workmanship. I don't even know. I cannot even get my mind around what she thinks is happening. It's sort of like did you see that news clip where they were talking about how much Bloomberg spent on his presidential campaign?
Well, I knew he spent an obscene amount.
Oh, but you didn't see it on the news?
No,
Oh, my
I don't
word.
watch the
Oh,
news.
Becca, well, I don't either, but I saw the clip, and it is, weepingly funny. It's
Okay.
so bad. Okay. They were like, Bloomberg spent $500 million on his campaign, and it was like, there are 327 million people in America, so he could have given every person $1.5 million. Instead of his campaign, and they had a big discussion about when we could all be millionaires if he had just given it to us. When really, what it ends up being is each human could have gotten $1.50. And they're
Oh,
like,
man.
"Can you even believe $1 million for each of us?" And it is just so killer funny. But anyways, the point. Sorry, I got derailed. This person has taken up with the concept that we are not being paid for our labor as mothers. So
Okay.
we're going to bill the patriarchy for all
Who-
of our
who
billable hours.
Who's the patriarchy, precisely?
Well, from what I gathered,
Who's
and
going to pay that bill?
Here's the thing. There's some gestures towards calling your senators, and she demands universal child care. But in her
What?
bills that she writes up for the patriarchy, there's really nothing about it that's acceptable. Every element is hilarious. She's double billing in all kinds of places. So she's line itemizing her emotional output, her
No.
emotional labor.
No.
Yeah. So she'd be like, today she put in 12 hours of emotional labor, but it adds up to be 30 hours a day of her billable work that she's doing.
She's a multitasker.
I was like,
multitasking
this woman is, but isn't that the thing, the double billing, like a lawyer, someone who charges a lot per hour? That's a thing that's not smiled upon, is when you're traveling to one job and you're billing them by your hourly bill while working on another thing that's doubling your hourly wages.
Oh yeah, right.
And if you're traveling to meet with two different clients, you could bill everyone for all of your hours.
Right.
So,
right.
but she's doing that. But she's also saying And you can imagine nothing more depressing, because there's like a picture of this woman at some kind of a protest. I just, in my mind, I put her in Portland, but she could be anywhere, but the look is very Portland. And she has this child in a stroller, and she's wearing like a sandwich board itemizing the time she's been spending that's not been paid by this poor child that's there in the stroller. And then, but then get this is the part that's so funny. So she wants the government to write her a check for like being pregnant. She wants to get an hourly wage for her work from the patriarchy. But this is the part that I was wanting to hone in on, which is that it's essentially saying that you want to build the patriarchy, which I presume you hate. Because why else would you want to see them pay through the nose for this work? But you're also wanting to turn yourself into the surrogate of the patriarchy.
Well, yeah.
Not a free woman. You know, like, I'd like to be the child care. I want to be nothing but chattel to the patriarchy. And if they would pay me, I would finally find value as their reproductive slave.
So, like, I just don't have a word for what it is.
Mind-bendingly bizarre. I mean,
it's just so boringly self-centered.
Well, but I was thinking about that. I was just thinking how weird it is that that is just slavery concept, because the idea of being paid is the thing that makes people think you're being free, like you're free to go work, where you're really free when you're doing,
when you're the one paying others.
Yes, when you're free to actually be so like, freedom is being the person who goes and buys the food for your children with your money. It's not being someone who's paid to have your children.
I know. It's so strange. Yeah, and it's also, I think that this is a weird, we have tried to quantify everything into jobs. And she's clearly suffering from that problem.
And monies.
You know, money money is the real telltale sign of whether your work is meaningful or not.
Well, I've talked about this before. I always thought it was really funny where people do that with, like, I'm a skilled artisan knitter, so my hourly wage should be, because of my skill, $35 an hour, plus this will mean that my pair of socks should sell rightly. My due rights is a $350 pair of socks.
Right.
Well, nobody is going to buy that because, well, maybe they will, but not in a way that will keep you in business for long.
No.
But the interesting thing about that is that they think that the world is mistaken for not valuing you that much financially.
Yeah.
Or valuing that work you're doing that much financially. When the person who's not valuing your work rightly is you.
Yeah.
Like, the person who's trying to put a price tag on everything you ever do for someone is the person who is having a warped perspective.
Oh, man.
And it's like devaluing so many things to even start to put a price tag on it.
I wonder how much that child is owed for having to put up with.
Well, I think he's not going to get nearly as much out of it
there's
as
some
he's
emotional
need.
strain that he's going through.
The emotional damage of having your mother charting how much time she spends on you every day. I can't even. It's so tragic. The idea of being like, well, there goes another 10 minutes towards emotional output.
Well, and the thing is that that's a really egregious example of, I think, a common stumbling block.
This is why I thought it would be interesting to bring up, because I don't think we're all likely to get into that Portland mode of that kind of protest, but how many of us buy into the worldview of value, kind of the worldview of well, for instance, we talk a lot, you know, one of our themes that you all have very kindly taken to is that just be bad at it until you're good at it. Just work. Well, that's one of the things that does not add up financially at the output. It is a later, in looking back, that is the kind of thing that's really worth it. But how often do you talk to women who are like, well, I tried to make a nice dinner.
Nobody appreciated it.
Nobody thought it was wonderful. So why would I do that? Yeah, exactly. Last time for that kind of work. And it's funny because you think like, well, there's an awful lot of things that don't add up. The math is not
No.
there in our world, but I think it's not there because we're free women, not because it is like you're free to place values on things that are not financial.
Right.
And that is really, it actually really made your freedom.
Yeah, but I think also when you get tempted to fuss and complain and hold grudges against all of your nearest and dearest, it's because you're thinking like this. You know?
Yeah, totally.
It's how much work do I do versus how much work do they do, and
Can we
let's
calculate
let's
that
put
and
a
see,
chart on the wall,
and who won? Who won then?
let's get a pie chart out and talk about it.
Yeah, and who's the biggest giver of us all, huh? And the funny part about that is that I think women routinely, I think that this is one of those things where men and women are very different, and they just are. But I think it is, especially in Christian circles, it is really, well, let me back up. Culturally speaking, right now, we're in the era of the woman, the she-ra, the era where everything a woman does is inflated value.
Well, and we're not allowed to talk about their sins.
No, because if you talked about a woman's sins, you hate women's. You hate us all. And but
You
this
betrayed everything.
right. And so then you say massively in the culture, you can ream men for anything, and you cannot touch women for anything.
No.
And then you translate that across into the Christian circles, and you have much the same dynamic.
Yeah.
As Dad has pointed out, and I think this is very fair, there's a lot of churches where on Mother's Day, there's a big, mothers are incredible, and without them, nothing would work, and everything is perfect with our mothers. And on Father's Day, we try to hit the men really hard and tell them how lame they are. I'd like to say, just imagine that kind of a message on a Mother's Day. Today, to celebrate all you ladies, I'd like to draw your attention to how bad you're doing. I mean, it's just terrible. But the funny part of it, and the reason I say this, is I think Christian men are actually take a lot more abuse than is owed them at all. And what I mean by that is, I think that women routinely undervalue what their husband is doing for them all the time.
And massively overvalue their own worth and
right. And
dignity
I actually remember this sometime thinking of when Luke was on a trip or something. Oh, the kids were little. The times were intense. My 15-minute building blocks of life seemed much longer. And his trip got delayed somehow. Like when he was gone, like he got delayed another night or something. And I remember having this temptation to feel like, here I am, bearing it all. Like, here I am, stuck at home with all this work, and you're off. And it was when I got to that part that I was like, spending the night in an airport somewhere. I mean, like, is that actually
Really
sound nice?
living his best life.
Right, like
in the airport.
Do I like being in a Ramada Inn somewhere else? No, I do not. Like, there's nothing about this that is it was not him having a good time somewhere.
Yeah.
But that temptation to be like, at least I'm man enough for the both of us to handle this. It's just terrible. It's
real bad.
Yeah.
Well, but I was noticing too, like, if you have anyone who's brave enough to speak a word about women's temptations and sins, the overreaction is so extra. And everyone acts like you've just insisted that every woman is guilty of these things, you know? And I was noticing today, I was thinking about this because in the Bible reading challenge we read Job. And I was like, well, look at that there wife doing a terrible job.
Right?
like here she came along and made everything.
Curse God and die, Job.
And he said,
no, but I think she even says, are you still living with integrity? Why don't you just curse God and die?
And he's like, you're speaking like one of the foolish women. And I thought that was just a real moment to notice.
Yeah,
it was
take it into account.
It was like, there's a category of foolish women, and right now you're behaving like one.
And right after that, he says, it says that in everything, Job said he did not sin.
Right.
So he rebukes his wife by telling her she's talking like a foolish woman, and he was not being sinful in that.
Well, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but my husband's theory is that a wife sort of sets brackets around her husband. Mm-hmm. You know, like some women set the lowest bar below which he cannot sink, sort of. Mm-hmm. But there's other women who put a ceiling on it past which he cannot succeed or grow.
Yeah, I see that. I actually see that often. And this is a thing, I agree with this, but this is a thing I feel like I've seen more and more the older I have gotten, the more I have seen people not being wise in their spouse actually being a really...
like not choosing their spouse right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. That's what I mean. I mean, like, choosing according to sort of, like, not looking spiritually at your marriage potential.
I was talking to my daughters about this yesterday. We were having this discussion about, well, you did an Instagram post about it, about the girls that get their little princess complex going.
Yeah.
About the guys who are not good enough for me.
Right.
Having kind of an inflated view of their own league, where they are in the world, that kind of thing. I was thinking there's a lot of girls who are out there giving the stink face to some perfectly good men. You know what I mean? And not that you have to go for any guy, of course. You know, it's not like you're obligated to marry anyone who asks you. But there's some girls...
Let's just take a little moment for the praise hands right there.
Right, isn't that good news for us?
Let's just say that none of this has anything to do with us saying be less discerning about who you marry.
No.
But I think it's discern the right things.
That's the thing. And what one of my girls said is, she goes, I think that basically chick flicks are responsible for this.
I think there's a big element of truth.
You're so right, because everybody gets this idea of how it ought to go and how he ought to be.
And actually, almost universally in a chick flick, that if anyone has to really change or bow to the other person, it's the man needs to change.
Yeah.
The woman, she's probably pretty much all the things together. And whatever her bad traits are, they're endearing.
They're lovable
good ones. They're kind of like, you need to just see her for what she is, and she'll be so special for you.
Yeah.
But I see, it's not lower your standards. It's have a godly standard, and keep that one as high as it can be.
Yeah.
But one of the important tidbits is...
And if he's not planning a picnic on the beach, then that's not a good reason.
That's not it. And
if he drinks too much, that's a good reason.
That's a legit situation to take into account and get yourself out of...
Right. If he's not a godly man, if he's not pursuing Christ, if he's not in the Word, if he's not...
Have nothing to do with that.
If he's not a hard worker.
But if he is like a godly man and wants to get married and have kids, and you can hear the young single girls being like, like when a guy shows his hand too much, when some guy's like just looking for a wife. And everyone's like,
oh my gosh.
So awful. So terrible. We were just talking with our kids yesterday about the only outrage, the only thing that people want to see as sexually abnormal is a decent man falling in love with a woman and marrying her and having children.
Yes.
And staying faithful to each other. That's the one thing that is like, that's
deviant.
Not normal.
That's deviant behavior.
That is, you are so creepy for saying you want to find a good woman to marry. Or for women saying that people be like, it's so lame if a woman said that she wanted to get married and have kids. Like that's just, and believe me, I understand the social element
as
of
a
weirdness.
Desperate weird muffin, but
yeah, but I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, the one thing the whole world wants, like, imagine a chick flick in which a guy is like, I'm really looking for a woman who would make a great mother. Like, I'm looking to raise up children with someone. And just imagine them trying to make that cute. They would not be able to because they think it's devious.
Yeah, and what they want is somebody who's going to look great in Tuscan sunsets somewhere. Like somebody who's going to go on wine tours.
Ride cute mopeds.
With them and ride mopeds and... be on the beach and all that,
or maybe after many years invest in a dog.
Be high powered in the city
Yeah.
We might do that.
Power lunching with one another. I think the important thing about this is to actually get your perspective oriented to, like, what does God want from his people,
Right.
not what seems cool. Like, who is the person? And I'll tell you something. I have something I've been thinking about. I think a lot of girls whose standards are too high for all the Christian men are actually the ones who would be most likely to fall for the guy who truly is a big level nincompoop.
Yes, for
Right?
sure.
Like, they're way above it for the guys who might be, or as
Solid citizens.
yeah, the guy who might be just... I remember a friend not liking a guy who was in all ways the good candidate for her because she didn't like his coat. And his coat... And you have to get into the head of this because his coat seemed like a symbolic coat. It was a coat that in her mind was affiliated with things she didn't
Yeah.
want to have anything to do
Yeah.
with. It was just
Yeah.
like, you can imagine
It's kind of
that.
like he wears white.
White
socks.
I see him in pale yellow sometimes, and I hate pale yellow. And but the reality is, I understand these things seeming significant, but they actually just aren't. Like, that people who have that kind of standard, that is like,
Right.
did you not see that he had a cheap quality dress shirt on? Like, and they have that standard, but then they're likely to fall for someone who is drinking too much, or
But
who-
he nails
but
it
man,
with the
he's
coat.
on it with the fashion, or he never accidentally did a bad job with his hair gel. And they're like,
Oh,
but
man.
what he does do wrong is the porn problem. That was the thing he should not have been doing. And I think that's...
Or who's just a total flake. Doesn't follow through on
Yeah, or a
things.
major
Doesn't
weenie
finish
or
what he
something.
started.
Yeah, it's like-
Maybe he's a... Oh, man.
maybe he has a great motorcycle, but
Maybe
he's
he's a
actually a
wuss.
loser, guys. Maybe he
Oh,
is.
man. I know.
The problem here, I think, is that the older women will see these things more clearly, and the younger women aren't interested in what older
Also,
women
can
like.
we all say that if he's moody...
Oh, get the hens.
Because Moody, again, channeling chick flick
Run
vibes.
for the hills, ladies.
Moody only looks good from a distance.
No, but Moody is the principal sucker inner of women because
Yeah, I know.
because they're always like, he's so scowly at the whole world, but he smiled at me, or he winked at me, but he's
So
usually
bad.
such a storm cloud. It must be that I am his sunshine. And
So bad.
Don't do it. It's the
Stay
worst.
out of those weeds, guys.
No, but then the perpetually cheery guy gets little street cred with the girls. They're like, I was looking for someone a little less steady. Not
I know.
interested in this.
somebody who's going to be like really emotionally manipulative after we're married. That's what I look for.
And I'm going to say one other thing now that we're on this council for who you should marry topic we never meant to get on. One of these other things is it's also foolish to think that if a guy doesn't have his whole career outlined, that he's not ready for a wife. It is an important thing to know that your husband, whoever your future husband is, hopefully needs you. Right? Like, hopefully, it's not like
Maybe he needs somebody to throw away the yellow shirt.
Yeah, maybe, right. But I meant maybe he hasn't taken off in a life career path such that you know what he's going to be doing in 20 years, but you know who he is, you know what kind of a principled person he is or whatever. And there's a real reason that I've seen that occasionally, is that kind of like, well, he doesn't have a steady career yet, or he doesn't have...
Or there's a lifestyle. I think I've seen the other one too, where he wants to knuckle down and do his work and pursue his calling. And you have girls who, they want to travel and they want to be spontaneous and they want to have a
Right.
life that's very Instagrammable and they want to be able to, I don't know.
spend the money
Travel.
that hasn't
To
been
be
made
honest,
yet.
Travel is a big one, I think, for people prioritize travel to a really weird extent. And it feels like that's when it, like we were talking
Luke
about.
and I have always.
Yeah, you do.
We
You
do.
You like went to Spokane
We did that.
yesterday.
We did that once. Luke and I, when the Merkles were in England, we had just had the twins, and so we were the ones that were not suitable for travel. So in every application where our whole family has traveled the world,
Yeah.
we have not. We stay where we're put. Someday
No, but
we might travel, but
you know what
not
I mean?
now.
Like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of people that they postpone a lot of pretty important things in life
Yeah.
because travel. Like, we're not going to have
We
kids.
need to see the world.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
going to have kids because we need to travel. We're not going to get married because I need to travel. We're not, like,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of strange emphasis put there. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like social media has really inflamed that.
I think social media has do you know my theory about nitro coffee?
No.
Well, you've had nitro cold
Yeah.
brew? Yeah. Well, the thing about nitro, I don't think this is backed up by any scientific journal studies.
This is just freelance
this is
Rachel science.
This is a study I've done in the wilds of my own life, and I can give you the data.
Okay.
And
Tell me about
so
it.
nitro, the caffeine in a nitro cold brew will affect you
More
differently,
quickly, right?
I think it's just a different delivery thing because of the nitro. It gets into your
Okay.
blood quicker or whatever.
Okay.
So it tends to not make you, it doesn't make my jaw hurt.
Sure.
It just affects you, the caffeine affects you. If I drink too much coffee, the jaw hurt thing, I just mean sometimes I get that weird feeling from coffee.
Right.
Nitro doesn't do that. But nitro can be a real mistake for me also.
Okay.
So, but what happens to me is that whatever mood you're in, nitro just sort of superpowers that. So
So
never
choose your mood wisely.
choose your mood for nitro well, because if you're having a really productive day and you're like, wow, this is going so great, drink a nitro by all means. But if you're really feeling like
Down.
I have got to snap out of this and get something done, so I'll go get myself a coffee, do not get a nitro at that time, because what happens to me is it superpowers the feelings of not getting anything done for way too long. It's like it gives you a 6-hour extension on whatever mood you're in. So you can't pull yourself out of the dump with a nitro. So you just don't want to do that. You're like, don't go there. Probably if you're feeling that way, you should drink 3 liters of water and take a 15-minute nap and see what comes of it.
See what happens.
Yeah, but the reason I bring that up is I think social media kind of does that same thing. Like, it magnifies whatever problems you're having, but I do think it makes common temptations a bigger obstacle. Like, it actually inflates.
Yeah, right.
If envy is a struggle in your life, envy is a much bigger thing to deal with in the world of social media. Or, or back to the coronavirus. Fear. If fear is a real problem in your life, social media gives you so many more opportunities to be fearful. So many more things to be like, what? Someone's child in Louisiana 3 years ago got tiki torch fuel on their face. And it's not funny. It's a real example. But I clearly...
It's horrible. I just felt like you were winning the championship of random examples.
And now I'm saying, my point is,
No,
you
now
can
I
get
just
snookered.
laughed at
I know.
that. That's bad.
We were laughing at the randomness of the
Oh,
randomness.
everyone. I'm sorry that I
my
laughed
point
at
my
someone's
point
misfortune.
in this is the fact that you now have like an international database of things to fear. Right? Like what to panic over is
Discontent can just churn its way out in social media.
Do you struggle with resentment of your family? Well, social media will help you to do that times 10.
You can just have a real pipeline to that.
On the
all
other
the
hand,
time.
and I'm just going to say this because I know you all know that I don't have a problem with social media. I do think it is a tool, and it is wealth. And that means that in many of those cases, I don't think the solution is to get out of a world that has social media. I think the solution is to
Fix your
train
attitude.
yourself to have a better defense mechanism for
Yeah.
these things. Like, no Christian is like condemned to a life of envy on social media. You can actually,
It's one of the things you could choose to not do.
right, you could actually with the Holy Spirit and just general confession of
Best
sin, accountability.
practice
Yeah,
Christian
exactly. You
work.
can get past those things. You do not have to be like, you know what happens to me.
And if you find a person who's routinely causing you to grit your teeth when you see them on social media, well, unfollow them.
Yeah, but if it's like
And you
your
don't
friend,
have to
if
you
it's
know.
like your friend and you're gritting your teeth because you think she's prettier than you, pray about that and
Yeah,
get the
for
grace to
sure.
not be that person who's
Sure. But I mean, like, the sort of person that you feel tempted to be critical of all the time whenever you see them or
yeah,
something.
totally.
Yeah, just don't.
No, because you're like, why
Walk
would I? Why would
around
you
the
subscribe?
temptation.
Should you subscribe to the magazine that annoys you? Maybe not. Do you need to pore over the pages? I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, like, there's actually other things to do in life than
Yeah.
that. So,
Man, isn't that the case?
yeah, I would just say let's all talk about not just giving in to every temptation on social media. I actually find I have a weird Facebook is not a time suck for me because it is out of control for me. And I find that's actually that's helpful. Like, if I highly curated a list of people
Oh,
that I
no.
actually meant to
No.
keep track of on Facebook, I could see getting sucked into trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But my entire Facebook feed is irrelevant.
Mine too.
There's
Yeah.
nothing in it that is.
I don't know many of them, and I couldn't possibly wade through to get it down. But you know what? Instagram, though, I only follow like 11 people, possibly 18. I'm not really sure, because that is one where it's like
There's more to see on Instagram.
I don't need to see what everybody else has posted. You know,
Yeah, I follow a lot.
I might stray on up to 20 one of these days, but I don't want
really, really selfish of you. I think I just think it's an interesting thing. We can actually have the victory over that kind of thing. And I remember thinking years ago, back when the Bible Reading Challenge had not yet started, we had the 500th year of the Reformation celebration, and I remember thinking, what would women like that, the women of the Reformation, have thought of our opportunities to
Yep.
share the gospel? Like,
Yep.
what would they have thought of our opportunity? Like, what all the resources that we actually possess and are not availing ourselves of?
Right.
And you think a big part of that is that they were already all in, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of us today are missing, is that we're curating a life that is not primarily about the gospel. You know what I
Or
mean?
it's very compartmentalized. It's like we have a bento box approach.
Exactly. Like, well, I have my little gospel sushi roll down there in the bottom of
Yeah.
the cache of other things. But if people
Right.
came to look at actually, this is the thing. Here's an interesting challenge. If people who didn't know you at all came to look at your social media, what would they know of your faith? Would they find anything? Because I suspect that for many of us, there's actually not much about your faith on it. There's like,
Right.
it's like, well, this is us. Would they know much about the styles you like? Probably. Would they know much about
Your
like,
political opinions?
most likely people could ascertain that. What if they, what would they find out about you?
Right.
That you're on trend in many ways, or that you are living differently?
Yeah.
It's kind of
True.
important questions.
It's true. Now, I have a very random and not connected at all thing to tell you about. This
Okay.
was a random trail that I
Okay.
scampered down of the internet the other day.
Was it a magazine I don't want to subscribe to?
Nah, well, this was epic. And I
Okay.
was like, there's only you who's going to appreciate this.
Okay.
So, for no good reason that I know of, I decided that I needed to make some yogurt.
Oh, yeah, I like
And I was
that.
like, I really need to make like a Greek yogurt, but I want to just do more of so I'm reading about traditional Greek yogurt. Oh, I know why this was. When we were in Greece last summer, the yogurt was so good, and it was actually different than the Greek yogurt that you buy here. So I'm Googling, because we were on a trip. We were there's a lot of time just sitting in the car driving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm reading up why Rachel does the Greek yogurt here not taste like yogurt in Greece? Like there's just a difference in texture or something. So I'm reading about that, and then I'm like, I need to try that. I'm gonna have to make me some yogurt. I'm gonna
get me
have
a Greek
to do
cow
that.
for starters.
Yeah, Greek cow for sure. And then I was like, and then of course, it's super simple, but you just have to start with the culture, right? And I was like, but I know that with sourdough, you don't have to get somebody else's starter. You can start your own from the wild yeasts of the airs.
You catch it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I wonder if that's true of yogurt or if you really have to have another yogurt. So then I start going like, where's the original yogurt? What's the original ground zero yogurt where you can start your own? And so I'm doing some reading on this, and I get into this amazing thread. Amazing. That was just such a little microscope on humanity.
I think that if you got into catch your own yogurt cultures, that would be the prime ground to find weird.
Yeah, to find some stuff. But
that's where I would look for it.
Well, it was really good because first off, there's a lot of people
into the kefir subgroup.
Well, people asking the question. They're like, how does one come about finding the right strain of bacteria in the air? And some people are like, well, when I was growing up in Turkey, my housekeeper would just leave a bowl of milk on the counter and it would just turn into yogurt. And so they're all discussing whether or not that's the case.
If that's true, if it is like sourdough, then maybe you're making so much yogurt that you actually have that in the air.
That's
You've
what they were
cultured
saying.
Yogurt in the air.
And they were still like, but what if you don't have that in the air? Because people try it and their milk just goes bad and stuff.
Yeah, this is how you give yourself a
you
foodborne illness.
Yeah, but you won't believe where you can get the original yogurt stuff from. You get a big pinch of dirt out of an anthill.
Get out. This is for acidophilus?
It is, I can't remember.
Is that what it is?
So you
is
put it in the yogurt.
No,
it was
that's
a different...
really close to bucephalus, which can't be it.
No, it's a number of different...
Napoleon's horse.
Yeah.
Isn't that what that is?
Not Napoleon, it's Alexander the Great.
All right.
But anyways, the a big pinch of the stuff from anthill or ant eggs. If you can come upon ant eggs, you stick it in your milk, and then you let it sit, and it goes into little lumpy curds, and you take one of the curds out, and that's where you begin.
Is that a kefir culture?
No, this is yogurt.
I know, but isn't kefir a liquid or yogurt? And it makes a grain.
But this is the
that
next
where they're
thing.
getting?
No,
kefir
this
grains?
is the next thing. Because this is just a big.
I'm about
squishy,
to go down this hill.
Yeah, but see then what happens is
the anthill.
But you can also do it, Rach, with chili stems, like chilies with the stem attached. You can put in warm milk, let it sit. And I watched a whole Turkish video of a Turkish woman putting chilies into warm milk. And it had some subtitles, but it's important that the stem be on it. Well, okay, so I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to try. I'm not going to do the anthill. I mean, I think I'm going to stay out of that. But I'm going to maybe do a chili stem. But then somebody else is like, you can also do it with lemon or chickpeas or a tamarind. So anyhow, I was very interested in this. But then a fight breaks out in the comments. Total fight. I mean, sarcasm, calling one another to account for their lack of scholarship, going to the all caps. And it was because somebody was like, well, this will make a thickened milk product, but it will not be yogurt because it is not going to be that specific strain of bacteria. And in order to be yogurt, it has to be that specific strain. The other one was insisting that it adapts once it's put in dairy and becomes that specific strain. Then they begin yelling at one another over their lack of journal article citations. And then, no joke, one man actually began to boast of his abilities with the microfiche. And I was dying. I was like, this...
I thought you were going to say someone accused...
So
at that point, someone brought up Federal Vision.
But then I remain stumped because I'm like, I actually really want to try this now. But if it's not yogurt, I don't really want to make it. Like, I don't want to make sour cream or creme fraiche, although I do. But what I'm on a quest for right now.
Yeah,
is
okay.
yogurt.
Lactobacillus acidophilus
that's the
is
one.
one of the probiotics in yogurt.
Yeah, it's one of. And so this one man was
So
quite
I
insistent
use
that the chili one would adapt and become that. The other one was very not. And they then got into another fight about grape skins that I couldn't follow.
I'm not sure that if you started from the dirt to make it, that you're going to come up with a Greek tasting yogurt in the first place.
They said that was the Turkish one. Like they said that's what it is in Turkey. But they said that
But
what
even
they
there, I'm
think it
sure
is
that they use the
sa-
starter. They use the starters.
Yeah, but you have to find at the original one. But they said that they think it's the saliva of the ant that makes the little pills of dirt, you know, when they're building the anthill.
Yeah.
They think that that's what makes it.
It just makes you want to praise the Lord for his,
Right?
the craziness.
But I was also like, chickpeas. We grow chickpeas here, Rach. You and I could make a fully local yogurt from the chickpeas. I was threatening my children.
I just Googled this to check on this. Where do kefir grains come from?
Okay. All right.
Because you know what they're like. They're like weird tapioca balls, kind of.
Mm-hmm. No, this didn't look like that at all.
Yeah, but these you just put in milk. And then you strain it out
Yeah.
and put them in the next batch of milk.
Sure.
And they multiply themselves up,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Kefir grains occur in nature. They are living microorganisms, not man-made. No one knows exactly where or when the kefir grains first appeared. What has been established, however, is that kefir grains originated from the northern Caucasus mountain region of the former USSR.
Okay. Well, now you know.
So when
But see-
God made us a liquid yogurt microorganism
but
in
the
the
thing
mountains of the USSR.
The thing about this though is I'm like, I told my kids, I'm gonna go cruising around some of the outside of some of those grain elevators looking for chickpeas.
Why?
See
Just
if
go
I
to
could
the
just-
field and
No,
get some.
look, well, they're not growing right now.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
find an old chickpea because maybe it'll
The
have
the hard one.
some ant saliva on it too for a double whammy.
The hard one. All you have to do is go buy some of our, because you can get them at
I
like
know. I
Huckleberries.
totally am. I'm
At
totally going to.
Huckleberries, you can get the Palouse garbanzo
Okay.
beans.
Well, now I know that you're gonna find me down there buying some chickpeas to see
Well,
if
why
it's
not?
true.
Why not do that?
I know.
think you should.
I know. I'm just feeling like these are waters that should be explored.
Oh, I see. I sometimes get into those waters and then I get back out. Like you started up with like yes, and then you're like, or not,
Yeah.
but still that seems
I know,
really.
but I just want to know, you know, and
Oh yeah, I stand behind your decision.
yogurt's
to try
pretty
this.
low key.
I use the
levels.
Gourmet yogurt machine that I quite
Oh,
like.
okay.
It's so easy, and I like it.
Well, this doesn't seem like it's too high powered of a process.
This is. I know you don't really have to have a yogurt machine, but it just keeps. It's like a water bath. It has like
Yeah.
a water bath to just keep a steady temperature.
Right.
But it is an 8-cup vessel that
Yeah.
makes 8 cups of yogurt, so it's not like little fiddly stuff.
Yeah.
But I really like their starter. I use their powder starter, the Yo Gourmet.
Right.
It's like just a freeze dried, probably. or
Yeah, I
something.
know. And you can do that, or you can just start it with a regular
I know, but
yogurt.
whenever I've done it with another yogurt, I don't
Like
The,
as
I
much.
like the flavor
Yeah.
of their
Right.
profile.
Well,
of that.
apparently the chili pepper one, you get a sort of a spicy tone initially. And then
which
after,
comes as no real surprise.
after like the 5th generation, then it's totally normal.
I've started getting into.
But I
those,
want to. I just need to do it and try it and strain it in the cheesecloth and do the whole thing. I was reading about this company in New York where it's some Greek guys that are making,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and they brought the whatever starter from Greece, and they're doing it all the whatever original way. But they're saying it takes 3 days start to finish to make their yogurt. So I'm trying to figure out what that would be.
Straining, because the Greek yogurt is what makes it so thick and creamy is all the straining of the whey.
I know, but not for days.
yeah, because you have to do like batches of it.
Well, maybe
probably.
it's because they're making such a huge amount.
Yeah, but see, my problem is that to me, trying to make a Greek yogurt is like, it is like the same problem as making fruit leather out of fruit.
Oh, it's just too much milk for little result?
We actually, because if you strain all the way out of it, you get very little for however big the volume
You know what
is.
people were saying to do with it, though? And I couldn't find why.
whey?
They said use it to make lemonade.
Yeah, whey based.
What?
Oh, because
Why?
there's a lot of fermenting type things that you can use
Sounds
the
pretty
whey
gross to me.
for. I like how whenever someone pulls up, wherever we're on our Outlook, whenever someone joins us, we're like, what are these sinister people doing? Keep looking in the
It's
rear
like
view mirror.
we're just sitting here. Rachel's knitting.
What's
I'm
your
talking
problem?
about yogurt.
Why else is... Yeah, I mean, is there any... I am knitting. I'm knitting a clover tweed dishcloth because what we needed was some cuter, freshery looking dishcloths in our house.
Yeah, I need those for sure. However,
I told my girls...
I'm gonna need a cupboard first, and then I'll get.
I
some
told
new
my
ones.
girls, like, show me... I need new dishcloths from everyone over spring break. Join me in this labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well,
I should get some out of that.
do you have a tip for us before we sign
I
out?
did have a tip. I have a tip, I think.
What?
I've told you before that one of my favorite cookbooks is the An Everlasting Meal. I really liked that one. But I liked it because it was like mind-bending, good reading, like how to think about cooking.
Yeah.
I feel like my job is more than just menu planning. It's a lot of food coming and going all the time. It's like, it's a different way of, I don't know. It's like my kitchen and I have to get to know each other in a complex way. And the Everlasting Meal I loved it because it was more about ways of being in your own, ways of, I don't know. So, I just liked it. But I also have always liked the, any kind of like prepare in advance kind of food. Well, wait, wrong. I never liked the cook all your food for a month in a day thing, but I'm talking about any kind of like I get really excited about the Ball canning book suggestions for making lemon curd to have on hand for whenever you might want a lemon curd.
Right.
And so I got one of my favorite sourdough cookbooks is by Emily Raffa that's called Artisan Sourdough Made Simple, and I recommended that one a lot. And there's a ton of stuff in it that is like applicable to normal family life, really useful recipes. Then I saw she had another cookbook that I think is called The Clever Cookbook or something like that. Her blog is The Clever Carrot, so that's why. But it's the same kind of like, here's things to make ahead so that you're prepared to do dinners in a short amount of time. Like, here's how you can feel equipped. What?
I'm just saying we have 1% left. So
we better wrap it up. We're done. It says it's battery.
I know, but it's been steadily going down.
Okay.
So I'm just telling everyone, if
So
we
it's
cut out.
it's a cookbook recommend.
Say it again. The Clever.
It's called The Clever Cookbook, and so far I'm quite happy about it.
Well, that's awesome.
All right. Well, guys,
We're about to die.
down to
not
1%
us,
battery.
Just the phone. It has nothing to do with the virus. All right.
All right. Until next
Everyone,
time.
have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.